Hello everyone, welcome to this video. We would like to explain about acquisition. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. And before we do that, we would like to introduce ourselves first. There are members in this group and they are Rafael Vipassana Dharmawan as myself, Gedejo Surusananda, Nimade Isa Tantia, Ludevi Febrianti, and Sri Swari. And without further ado, let's just begin. Language acquisition. Language acquisition is a process by which humans acquire words to perceive, produce, and use them to understand and communicate. It involves the picking up of diverse capacities, including syntax, phonetics, and an extensive vocabulary. However, learning a first language is something that every normal child does successfully without much need for formal lessons. Language language development is a complex and unique human quality, but yet children seem to acquire language quicker, with most children's speech being relatively grammatical by age 3. Vygotsky's social interaction theory incorporates nurture arguments that children can be influenced by their environment. For example, a couple is touring a foreign country with their young child. The child is able to speak the foreign language similarly what native speakers are speaking. There is natural wonder where the strange and difficult sounds of a foreign language appear to pour effortlessly out of the mouths of mere babies. And we come to the next point, which is no language but a cry. Crying is not only communicative, this is a child's crying. It is also the reason why it's not only communicative because it is also a direct precursor to both language, human symbolic communication, and speech, spoken language. In a sense, crying, at least in the first few months, is a kind of language without speech because the child communicates different types of discomfort without using normal speech sounds. Crying helps the child learn how to produce linguistic sounds. And so, this earliest form of utterance is also a precursor to speech. Vygotsky also developed the concept of private speech, which is when children must speak to themselves in a self-guarding and directing way, initially out loud and later internally, and the zone of proximal development, which refers to the tasks a child is unable to complete alone but is able to complete with the assistance of an adult. The intention and time that a mother spends talking about the topics and the child is already focused on highly correlates with early vocabulary. Crying is completely iconic. There's a direct and transparent link between the physical sound and its communicative intent. For example, the hungrier a baby becomes, the louder and the longer the crying. It also increases in pitch. The degree of discomfort is directly proportional to the intensity of acoustic signal. Crying and cooing are affected by caretaker behavior. It is difficult to presuppose whether the coos and gurgles of a just-fed baby reinforce the mother's contentment in carrying it, or whether the mother's sounds of comfort when nurturing her baby reinforce the child's attempt to mimic the contentment it perceives. A babbling stage is when a child is about 6 months old. Babbling refers to the natural tendency of a child of this age to burst out in strings of consonant vowel syllable clusters, almost as a kind of vocalic play.
Hello, I'm Josu. I would like to continue this video about the first words. First words refers to the way children acquire their first words from their environments. The word that usually said by the children refers to prominent everyday objects and usually that can be manipulated by the child. For example, Dada. Dada in this context means like daddy. And next, mama, doggy, and etc. This example related to the Piaget cognitive development theory. So here there are four cognitive development theory. Those are sensory motor period, pre-operational period, egocentrism, and operational period. First one is sensory motor period, from birth to 2 years. Children are born with action schemas to assimilated information about the world, such as sucking or grasping. The main achievement during this stage is object permanence. It requires the ability to form a mental representation of the object. For example, waving the hands, arrange some blocks and knock down the blocks, and etc. The second one is pre-operational period, from 2 years to 7 years. During this stage, young children can think about things symbolically. This is the ability to make one thing, a word or an object that stands for something other than itself. For example, drawing something on the wall, paper, etc. The third one, egocentrism. Here, it is involved animism, which refers to young children's tendency to consider everything, including inanimate objects, as being alive. Language is considered egocentric because they see things purely from their own perspective. For example, saying something with things. And the last is operational period, from 7 years to 11 years and 11 years to adulthood. Piaget divided this period into two parts. The first one is the period of concrete operation, and the last is the period of formal operation. Language at this stage reveals the movement of their things from immature to mature and from illogical to logical. They are also able to decenter or view things from a perspective other than their own. It is at this point that children's language becomes socialized and include things such as question, answer, comments, and criticism. Next video will continue by my friend.
Hello everyone, I am Isa. I will present about the example of the birth of grammar. In book acquisition, when I was a child, I spoke as a child. This example relates to behaviorist theory. According to B.F. Skinner's verbal in 1957, behavior applied a functional analysis approach to analysis language behavior in terms of their natural occurrence in response to environmental circumstances. And according to behaviorist theory, language learning is a process of habit formation that involves a period of trial and error where the child tries and fails to use correct language until it succeeds. For example, first, when the child says milk, milk indicates that the child requests milk, like I would like some milk. Second, if a child starts babbling, which resembles appropriate word, then his or her babbling will be rewarded by a parent or loved one by positive reinforcement such as a smile or clap. However, before a child can begin to speak, the first start by listening to the sound in their environment for the first years of their life. Finally, the child learns to associate certain sounds with certain situations, such as the sound of endearment a mother produces when feeding her child. Before long, children will take on the imitation or modeling component of Skinner's theory of language acquisition, in which children learn to speak by copying the utterances heard around them and by having their responses strengthened by the repetition. correction, and other reaction that adults provide.
Well, my name is Devi. I will explain to you about evidence for innateness. The author has reviewed one example, that is one measure of the weight of evidence for innateness. It is the belief most psycholinguists. It means that the acquisition of human language is not based solely on the external influence of a child environment. Here, I relate this example to two theories. The first one is behavior theory. According to Skinner, children learn their first language through the environment. They copy what people around them said, and they do like the imitation by repeating the utterances. This happened before they began to speak, so in the first year old, they start to listen the sound. And then the second one is innateness theory. Linden, in 2007, stated that the child's brain is then able to interpret what they hear according to the underlying principle of structures it already contains. Chomsky has determined that being biologically offsetting is due to the child's language acquisition device, or we can say that LAD, which is now it updated into UG or Universal Grammar. The example is that the children have listened the people around say work and played, so the children learn that the form of the simple past is adding the word by D, T, and etc. If we compare the human and ape, we can conclude that the change ape into human is difficult. Ape will never be ape human because the ape without the human DNA more close for our behavior and humanity.
Hello, I'm sorry. Now I will explain about childish creativity. From the example of childish creativity in the book Acquisition, when I was a child, I spoke as a child. The example related to innateness theory because this theory explains about the innate language by children. The innateness theory by Noam Chomsky showed the innate limitation of behaviorist view of language acquisition. This theory is that children are born with an innate knowledge which guides them in the language acquisition tasks. Moreover, Chomsky argues that a language has the universal structure which can follow by children. It means that the children also have the ability which probably help them to analyze the language structure, but it only happens on children, not on adults. For the example, childish activity. Childish activity is how the children make the false analogies or use language which is less appropriate. For example, in English, they say buy to be bite in past tense, but in fact, past tense of buy is bought. This is because children see that there is structure which can follow by them when they want to use language. The children heard it from their parents that when their parents using past tense, they use ed after the word. For example, their parents say work to be work or walk to be walked. The children heard it just by adding ed behind the word. So the children think that if they want to read the word in past tense, they just should be adding ed behind the word, whereas there is an irregular form which is constantly changing. For another example of childish creativity, we can see from this conversation there is nothing wrong with the hearing of two children. In the first example, Hiccup and hiccup are phonologically indistinguishable. In the second, given the fact that final consonant cluster in English, as in the cluster of interrupt, especially when they are voiceless, are usually not fully pronounced, the differences between the final syllable of interrupt versus interrupt would be consistently difficult to perceive in normal conversation, even for an adult.
Hello, I'm back again. I'm Rafael. I'm going to explain about the last point of this video, which is the stages of linguistic development. The study of child first language acquisition has now become an autonomous and growing discipline with its own texts, journals, and national and international conferences. It is difficult to present a concise summary of such a massive amount of research, even limiting our curiosity to just the acquisition of English as a mother tongue. We must we must preface this brief description of the stages of language acquisition with the admission that there is and always be individual differentiation. In all biological populations, there are always exceptions which fall on either side of the normal structure or behavior that defines a particular species, and this individuality is very conspicuous among Homo sapiens. In one of the earliest pieces of research on the acquisition of mother tongue by several child subjects, Roger Brown discovered that there was a glaring difference in the rate of language learning among the three children that he and his co-workers researched over a period of several years. All children, no matter how rapid or how pedestrian their rate of acquisition, proceed systematically through the same learning stages for any particular linguistic structure. An early example in the work of Brown's colleagues Edwin Klima and Ursula Belgi, who proved that children learning English produce two different types of WH questions before they eventually come up with the correct adult version. They identified three distinct stages. Stage number one, use of WH word but no auxiliary verb employed. What daddy doing? Why you laughing? Where mommy go? Stage number two, use of WH word and auxiliary verb after subject. Well, where's she will go? Why doggy can't see? Why you don't know? Stage number three, use of WH word and auxiliary verb before subject. Where where will she go? Why can doggy see? Why can doggy see? Why don't you know? That's all about our video, and we hope that you understand about our explanation. Thank you so much and have a very nice, beautiful day. Goodbye.